Why do you think all of these convenient and user-friendly services, including messengers, are free? Well, in fact, they actually pose a threat. The beauty of this menace is that it's absolutely imperceptible to the victim.
A warm welcome to everyone, dear friends, and tonight we are visiting Alexander, the head of the Department of Protection Against Digital Threats at InfoSecurity. Alexander, tell us a few words about yourself.
Well, I've been working in the field of cybercrime response, and I've been attempting to find solutions to these issues that are related to information security over the years.
What are the most important hazards in cyber world at this particular moment?
The main problem is that in many areas of the society, including enterprises, we're moving away from paper to electronic workflows. Now, people aren't really prepared for this. And one of the main problems is the fact that people pay an insufficient amount of attention to the issues which are connected with information security. In other words, everyone knows that you have to look to the left and look to the right before you cross the road, right? But it's not equally clear when we start speaking about how to secure your mobile phone or your social media account. Now, very few people know how it works when it comes down to this.
Alexander, here is my phone, which surely contains a lot of personal information that I would not like to share with anyone. How can this information be stolen?
Well, it's almost impossible to imagine the scenario where all of your personal information gets stolen. It actually sounds highly unlikely. No, it's more likely to be achieved by physically connecting a phone to certain devices.
Are you talking about wired connection?
Yes, precisely. Regarding this particular type of connection, it can be dangerous enough for public USB charging spots, because when you plug in your phone, you don't actually know what's on the other end of the wire. Now, this is actually a real threat, especially if you're using these USB charging spots in places that haven't been verified. Now, let's say you've come to a co-working area or any other public space, whatever it is. Imagine you've successfully connected your smartphone to one of these charging docks. What will happen next is quite a good question, due to the fact that it's actually uncertain whether the smartphone will just be charged or it will be actually sharing your personal information.
Precisely. The phone can be charged not only if there is a socket nearby. It also can be done if there is a laptop or a PC via a USB port.
Not necessarily a PC. There are compact devices that actually look like chargers, and these can access various smartphones via USB cables. It particularly depends on the security settings of your smartphone, and these aren't the same for every device, but it's more than a real risk which shouldn't be underestimated, especially if you've got some confidential data on the device.
Tell us about Wi-Fi. I've heard that using public Wi-Fi networks makes it easy to steal data from a phone. To what extent is that true?
Now, this is absolutely true, because open Wi-Fi networks don't use encryption, and a password is not required as well, so you can freely intercept all traffic that passes through the access point, and then quietly analyze it, trying to extract something valuable. What needs to be considered here is the fact that most of today's services, including social media for instance, they're now using their own encryption, and they share information in a very encrypted way. However, some information may pass through without encryption, and once the attacker has received the dataset, he or she is no longer limited in time, and they can calmly attempt to pick the right key to try to encrypt the information and find what has been transmitted into the open. You don't even have to be logged onto the network. It's enough to have a computer or a specifically prepared mobile phone with certain software. Now, for the computer, there's nothing else you need due to the fact that the operating system already has everything that you might possibly need. Like I've already said, you can sit next to the internet access point.
Wait a minute. Let's just demonstrate how it works. Here is my phone, and what has to be done on your side in order to steal the personal information from me?
Well, firstly, you have to access some kind of open wireless network. So I'm going to create this network for you, and we're going to give it a try. I'll now turn on the test Wi-Fi access point. It should be on your list.
No password required.
Sure thing. Your phone is now accessing the network through my phone, and all the traffic from your smartphone is going through mine as well. In fact, it's already a threat because with the help of certain tools, I can monitor and trace all the traffic from your phone, which means that you're now connected to a network that is notoriously unreliable. What I mean to say is that now I have access to any traffic, and there would basically be no need to intercept any data further. It can all be done in my phone thanks to my access point that has already been created. Or I can use my laptop, practically almost anything. Let's imagine for a second that it's not my phone. Let's say it's an open public access point in a cafe. The next thing to do is to take the laptop and, while using the operating system functionality, we don't even need to install anything, we can start scanning the range to detect any Wi-Fi networks that we're looking for. As you can see, our test Wi-Fi network that we created is visible. And finally, we enter another simple request, and all traffic from this network can be written into a file. So, you can spend a couple of hours in the same cafe, you can take as much time as you need to collect the traffic of all the users within this network, and then you can go back home, analyze the information, and see what you've got.
What will be revealed? Will we be able to see what we have been sending while being connected to this network, or maybe some photos that we have browsed in our phone back then? Maybe it's something else?
Well, if you browsed some pictures on your phone, this certainly wouldn't show up. However, the truth is that any interaction of your phone with external services will surely be visible. More or less all of that traffic will be encrypted, and it'll also be possible to see something in the open, including the files being sent and the data that's sent by email, so long as these files are being sent in their encrypted forms. Now, this is more realistic actually, and certainly can happen. Besides the above-mentioned things, you all know which websites people have visited while you're in the same cafe. All of this information will be shown in the results. You can also intercept the files that are used to authenticate certain services, so sometimes you don't even have to get the password. By intercepting specific cookies, you can pass yourself off as a stranger. In other words, the website will recognize you as a legitimate user whose data you've intercepted. Now, this is a real scenario beyond all reasonable doubts,
And the victim won't even know about it?
well, certainly. The victim won't be concerned when exactly the data was compromised, and will certainly not be able to control how it can be used afterward. The beauty of this attack is that it's totally invisible to the victim. Basically, we're just intercepting all of the information that's being transmitted in the radio band between the victims and the internet access point. What I mean to say is that we collect everything that comes in, and then we pull the data out of it. It's important to understand that even if you don't use a phone, it can still be exchanging information with various services in your pocket. It can be Apple or Google servers, and so on. Now, this all depends who the manufacturer is of your phone. It also receives constant notifications regarding new messages and communicates with other services. And all of this information can fall into the wrong hands.
Alexander, here we are talking to one another, and at this particular moment there are smartphones, laptops and PCs nearby. What are the chances that they are now recording our conversation and transmitting it elsewhere?
Well, I don't think there's a high possibility of that, but it doesn't mean that it can't happen, because there's this huge layer of malware that can be used, for instance, to capture images from a webcam or to access a microphone. The same can actually be said in terms of mobile devices. Of course, this is primarily related to the Android platform, but again, this is not because it's less secure. First of all, the problems with Android and Windows are actually related more to mass culture, as 80% of the world's smartphone market is represented by Android. It's therefore a lot more profitable to develop malicious tools that will target Android. In addition, as we've already said, the platform of Android allows you to install applications from unofficial sources. Now, this is very helpful for attackers. Additionally, the problem is that the apps you install with your PC and your smartphone are basically a sort of black box, and you don't really know how this app works or what it truly does, as well as what kind of information it collects. Some operating systems require admin rights when installing applications. Many people don't even look at it and just click OK. At the same time, it's worth taking a closer look. For instance, you're attempting to install a live wallpaper app on your phone, and it requires access to call management. Well, that should at least alarm you, right?
Why does this app need access to my phone records?
Now, this is exactly what I'm talking about. This application can have hidden functionalities. It can be described as an application with those animated wallpapers, for instance. Another problem is that many programs are made up of ready-made elements, kind of like bricks, which means that they use ready-made frameworks that have been developed by third-party companies, communities, and so on. And also, the software manufacturer doesn't know how safe those elements are. In recent years, there have been many cases where quite legitimate applications that are distributed through a specialized app store have acquired new functionalities that included malware after an update. Now, this actually came as a surprise even to its developers, because they used a library that was developed by an unknown manufacturer. Meanwhile, the developer of that library had abandoned it long ago, and some new people came in and implemented a virus called Trojan into it. So, the legitimate app on the phone got a new functionality, which is basically a malicious functionality.
Now let's advance to the most interesting section. Alexander, please tell us whether it's possible to hack an iPhone.
It is possible to hack almost anything. This just depends on how you feel about the safety of your device. So if you leave your phone on the table in a public place and go somewhere, there are many possible scenarios, such as when you might not install a password to access your phone. So the hacker will eventually crack it without doing anything, simply by taking it into his or her hands. An attacker can also peek in and see what you're doing to unlock your phone. There are too many ways to talk about. It all depends on whether someone needs to hack you and the value of the information that these hackers will eventually receive. There are reasons why a phone is actually somewhat safer. For example, if you take an iPhone that hasn't been jailbroken, an application from third-party sources cannot be installed. Now, this reduces the probability of contamination by a malicious program. But if you think this is way too outside the box, there are a lot of risks which users of iPhones can be exposed to. And in fact, this is sort of an attitude when people say that iPhone is safe and Android is dangerous, because it leads people who use iPhones to being slightly dismissive of issues that are related to information security. And practice shows that it is not necessary to hack an iPhone by overcoming its security mechanisms. You can hack an account that an iPhone is attached to and block the device through that account. Additionally, you can find the iPhone through service bots and use the iPhone service, which is perfectly designed to let you remotely block a lost or stolen phone. Through this service, attackers can block your phone if they gain access to iCloud, for instance.
There are a lot of bank applications for smartphones these days. Do you think they are secure enough?
Well, the applications themselves are generally quite well protected. Most of the theft is done, for example, by using SMS commands that are used to communicate with a mobile bank via SMS. Now, this is how the malware works. Moreover, it explains how attackers work when they talk to the victim on the phone. So technically, bank apps are well protected. But you can force the person to perform some kind of actions. In addition to what I've mentioned above, experience has shown that it's much easier to crack a person's brain than to hack a phone or a computer. Social engineering now accounts for about 90% of information and telecommunication crimes. Even if it's an attack on big companies, it'll start by phishing, with someone opening a link, or with a fake phone call, and in any case, the weak link is always the person.
Turning to the subject of messengers. Alexander, almost everyone has at least a few dozen messengers, where each person has at least one separate account. If we delete some of our correspondence, can it be restored upon a desire to do so?
It truly depends on the case. You can restore something with the help of forensic methods on your phone, and something can be restored using the iCloud if you used it to duplicate the correspondence. It depends on each particular messenger, on each device, and of course how long ago that occurred.
Which messenger do you consider being the safest one?
Well, basically any currently popular one. The most important thing is to use it wisely. I mean, there's no truly safe messenger. If the intruders get to your phone and it requires no password to unlock the screen, then all of your messages in all of your messengers will be automatically compromised. Today, the most popular messengers use this default encryption. There are nuances, because you can go to privacy settings, also known as security settings, and it all depends on which messenger you use. For example, see if the backups are saved on the iCloud and whether they are available on another device, or if someone can access a duplicate of your SIM card. All of this is very individual. In addition, you cannot rule out the possibility that, for example, a malware program will be installed on your phone that allows a malicious user to read data from your screen or send your messages elsewhere. Any modern popular messenger is generally quite safe, provided that you observe the rules of the so-called digital hygiene. The danger of using messengers is hidden in the fact that some types of communication are quite impersonal. You're communicating with a list of contacts and you don't know who's talking to you right now. The phone can be in the hands of another person, the account of a person can be hacked, and this is exactly why it's an extremely popular type of fraud that can be described in the following way. No time to explain, please transfer 5,000 rubles ASAP. Therefore, if you're communicating in terms of some confidential topics or sending sensitive information through the messenger, please try to use another type of communication to make sure that this is the right person on the other end of the line just before you send the money to that person.
How secure are the phone calls within a messenger?
To be honest, they are quite well protected. But you have to understand that nothing is impossible, and there are attack scenarios on popular messengers. It all depends on how valuable the information is that the attacker wants. Because in today's world, the question is not whether you're being attacked or not, but how important you are to someone, and how much money and time they're willing to spend on that attack. Because in order to intercept the call data, it's not necessary to crack a messenger. There are loads of tools and a lot of options which can allow malicious users to get the data they want. And these scenarios are designed considering the characteristics of the victim, their habits, and each particular case is therefore different. But it's a unique piece of merchandise. It's never going to be a massive, impersonal interception.
Alexander, I recently shot a video about a crash test of a flak jacket, and when I was talking with my friends regarding the preparation of the script, I noticed that the search engines often retrieved the following search results: buy a flak jack, sell a flak jack, and some other things related to a bulletproof vest, even though neither me nor my friends googled it or were we looking for a place to buy a bulletproof vest. The question, Alexander, how is that even possible?
Can I ask you my own question? What do you think about all of these convenient services, including messengers that we love to use for free, yet their development and maintenance require enormous financial outlays? As I understand, these are actually free because we pay for them not with money, but with data. We pay with data that allows them to promote their advertising more effectively. And in general, all free internet services are somehow tied to collecting and analyzing information that can be then sold on to advertisers. Or if they have their own advertising platforms, to use information to deliver targeted advertising. So it's not really that surprising at all. However, in the case regarding collecting data and such advertising, it should be understood that it does not mean that there's someone out there who listens to you, reads your correspondence. No, not at all. There are huge amounts of information that are used in automated algorithms that capture the necessary keywords that define your interest in particular topics. And all of that happens to somewhat impersonal and automatic avails. So that doesn't mean that the same Google reads all of your emails. It just creates a map of your preferences.
To offer me something in accordance with my own preferences?
Precisely, to offer you goods that you're more likely to buy.
These people call their victims mammoths, and if you type the word mammoth in the search bar of any search engine, you'll be able to find a huge number of themed channels. These school children don't quite understand how serious the crime is that they're committing. For this purpose, ready-made behavioral scripts are being created, as well as phishing sites that are ready to go.